Disclaimer: nobody you see here was involved with this video. The largest automotive media company in the world canceled all of its shows.
The whole MotorTrend studio ceased to exist. It shut down.
To find out what went wrong, I reached out to friends and colleagues who worked at MotorTrend. All of those sources still work in automotive media, so they want to remain anonymous. With one exception who said roughly, "Go ahead and use my name because I don't give a f about any of these m*****s." I decided to keep them anonymous as well. Welcome to AutoT. When MotorTrend owner Warner Brothers Discovery canceled all of their shows, fans and the people who lost their jobs were completely taken by surprise. Nobody had even told them there was a problem.
It got canceled and I couldn't tell you why.
Hang on. For people in automotive media outside of MotorTrend, this wasn't a big shock. For 10 years, we've been hearing about weird leadership decisions, financial problems, and creative issues. This was so well known in the industry, I wasn't sure it was worth making a video about it. But as the story unfolded, I started hearing colleagues ask, why isn't anybody talking about this reason or that reason? 6 months later, there's still stuff that nobody's publicly addressed.
Why it happened is as complicated a question as you could ever ask me.
People have asked why this went down. We were working for a giant company. They don't give us reasons.
Warner Brothers Discovery's $40 billion of debt was a big one. That's more debt than about 2/3 of the world's countries. Of course, those countries don't own a dozen valuable media properties like HBO, Harry Potter, and Batman. In spite of owning those and giving their CEO a 25% raise, putting his salary up to $50 million, that's $25,000 an hour. WB Discovery can't figure out how to make enough money to pay off that debt. One of their problems is that they're overinvested in old-fashioned media like cable TV. And now they're restructuring, doing layoffs and canceling anything that's not sufficiently profitable, like the MotorTrend shows.
It doesn't make enough money for this company to even notice.
So it was Discovery that canceled the shows and fired everybody. Mystery solved, right? Not quite. Even though Warner Brothers Discovery pulled the trigger, someone else put out the hit. MotorTrend Studios is just one part of the whole MotorTrend group, and in spite of the initial rumors, MotorTrend Studios did not get shut down.
First, I thought it was shutting down because a good portion of the people I know that work there have either been laid off or getting laid off. I'm told the studio itself is not shutting down.
MotorTrend Studios has several internal business units, one for editorial content like car reviews, one for branded content or ads, and one that's often called MotorTrend Productions or the unscripted television unit. And that's the only part that Warner Brothers Discovery whacked before selling off the rest of MotorTrend. Why get rid of one small unit within one subdivision of the entire MotorTrend group before selling? Well, the buyers told Discovery to do it. That's the Hearst Corporation. They're adding MotorTrend to a portfolio that includes Car and Driver, Road and Track, even Bring a Trailer. Hang on. At the risk of making an entire up to speed on MotorTrend, I need to talk about MotorTrend's evolution over the past 7 decades. It's a microcosm of the entire media industry. And if you didn't want all that detail, why did you click on a 30-minute video about MotorTrend? If MotorTrend had a Carfax, that would be a mile long. It's been around since the 1940s and has changed hands many times. Specifically, the magazine has been around for 75 years. Even though that's a tiny part of what MotorTrend is today, this way of thinking about the brand as a car magazine still persists, enough to get a mention in their most recent promo video.
So much more than a magazine.
The magazine was launched by Robert Peterson in 1949 after the success of Hot Rod magazine, which he started the year before. If you know cars, you've probably heard of the Peterson Museum in LA. Robert Peterson started that with the fortune he amassed publishing magazines, and it's one of the best automotive museums in the world. Robert Peterson amassed a fortune because he wasn't just into cars, he was a Renaissance man. His publishing empire included titles like Sport, Mountain Biker, Guns and Ammo, as well as Teen, Tiger Beat, and Sassy magazine. But in 1996, after nearly 50 years of stable leadership, the Peterson Publishing Company and MotorTrend were sold to a private equity group for $450 million. Just 3 years later, they sold it to another publisher for a staggering $2 billion. 2 years later, in 2001, MotorTrend was sold again to Prime Media. Prime Media already owned Truckin', Lowrider, Sport Compact Car, Super Street, Modified Magazine, and a bunch of others. 4 years after that, Prime Media sold MotorTrend, Hot Rod, and all of its automotive titles to another publisher, Source Interlink. This was owner number 5 in just 10 years. But there was a problem: timing. Readers were turning to the internet because you could find the same news and coverage, except it was free and you could read it all a month earlier. So in 2014, Source Interlink shifted focus almost entirely to non-print media. And to prove that they were more than just a magazine publisher, they rebranded as the Enthusiast Network, also known as TEN or 10. The company's change in focus caught the attention of other people who were trying to figure out how to survive the transition to new media. I kind of hate that term, new media, because it's about 30 years old. Hey, I just looked it up and it's actually closer to 60 years old, which is about how old I look here. In 2017, 10 was bought by cable TV giant Discovery. Discovery bought them specifically for one of their brands, MotorTrend. Discovery didn't really care about MotorTrend magazine, of course. That was dead money. But the video service, MotorTrend On Demand, was a competitor of Discovery's channel Velocity. And with a 70-year history, MotorTrend was a much more recognizable brand. It also had a library of popular content and had a production studio constantly making more. MotorTrend's content was merged with the Velocity channel, which was then rebranded as the MotorTrend Network. And MotorTrend's owner, 10, along with all of its other magazine brands, was renamed the MotorTrend Group. That's what MotorTrend is today. Hearst didn't want to start their ownership of MotorTrend by firing the most recognizable people there. That would have been a PR mess, especially for a company that's known for layoffs. Whoops, sorry, that's the wrong headline. This is what I was referring to. So Hearst told Warner Bros. Discovery to swing that axe before taking over. On November 18th, it was officially confirmed that the MotorTrend shows were canceled, and just 3 weeks later, Hearst bought the MotorTrend Group. But a sale like that takes longer than 3 weeks to execute. It involves teams of lawyers, millions and millions of dollars, and takes months. Discovery shut down the MotorTrend shows before the sale was final because it was a condition for that sale. That way Hearst gets to look like the good guys in all this. Discovery is in massive debt, and the big bosses are shutting things down. MotorTrend is on the ropes. Its shows have been canceled. Hearst swoops in and saves MotorTrend. They're a hero rescuing a beloved brand. But the truth is, Hearst didn't want the shows or the people who made them. MotorTrend is more valuable without the unscripted television unit. The shows weren't profitable. If they were, Hearst would have wanted them to continue. Frankly, Hearst doesn't care about making automotive TV shows anyway. Even though they're often called a media company, most of Hearst's profits come from other services. One of their most profitable services they call Data and Insights. The rest of us call it selling your audience's information. For Hearst, MotorTrend shows don't produce audience data that's valuable enough to justify their cost. So, mystery solved. Again, Discovery did the dirty work, but it was Hearst that ordered the killing. But there's something else that's puzzling. MotorTrend has a YouTube channel among the top 10 most subscribed automotive channels in the world. With an audience that size, shouldn't it be easy to make money with MotorTrend shows? That all depends on how you think about those shows, and MotorTrend's leadership has spent the last 10 years getting that completely wrong. MotorTrend On Demand, also known as the Paywall, was a controversial decision when it rolled out in 2015.
Exclusive first look access to new episodes of Roadkill, Head to Head, Dirt Every Day. MotorTrend On Demand.
The response was awful, and MotorTrend tried to calm people down.
Don't freak out about MotorTrendOnDemand.com. If you're a subscriber, you do get early access to the YouTube shows. But if you're a YouTuber, you still get to see those shows. It's just a little bit later.
But 2 years later, a company built on paid TV took over, and the MotorTrend original shows no longer appeared on YouTube.
All new episodes from the MotorTrend YouTube channel will live exclusively on MotorTrend.com and the MotorTrend app.
This is what killed MotorTrend's shows according to most fans. But it wasn't just fans who had a problem with this. When I make these videos, I don't rely on what just one person tells me. In this case, Everyone I spoke to said the same thing. For years, people inside MotorTrend had been telling leaders the same thing that fans were saying, just release the content on YouTube. And in those stories, the same names kept coming up, specific executives and managers that seemed to be the problem. Several years ago, I was at a press event sharing a car with someone who had left MotorTrend. He told me that after he quit, an executive asked him to dinner to find out what had gone wrong and why he left. Much of that conversation centered around MotorTrend's decision to stop releasing its most popular content on YouTube. He thought this decision was bad for MotorTrend and bad for his career. Apparently they didn't listen because they were convinced that they should be making television. And there's one big reason why they thought this. The entire MotorTrend studio started when Google handed them a sack of cash and said, make a cable TV channel. Back in the mid-2000s, MotorTrend was making tons of free content on YouTube and regularly getting six-figure views. That performance secured them a spot in the YouTube Original Channel Initiative in 2012. Google invested $100 million across 100 different channels to fund the production of television-quality programming exclusively for YouTube. The idea was that channels which were successful would graduate to Google TV, a multi-channel streaming service designed to compete with traditional cable. Channels which received that money include Vice, The Onion, the Shaquille O'Neal Comedy Network, which has been renamed a couple times and is now owned by Kevin Hart, a dance channel started by Madonna, the Wall Street Journal, even Red Bull's YouTube channel was part of this. For automotive, the channels included MotorTrend, The Drive, Car and Driver, and something called Extreme, World Exciting Car Movie Channel. That was from Japan and focused on drifting. The long-term success of those 100 YouTube channels has been mixed, but MotorTrend really understood the assignment. Make a TV channel. They used Google's money to launch MotorTrend Studio and created a lineup of 8 original shows. That included Head to Head for car comparison tests, Hot Rod Unlimited for unlimited hot rods, and the hit show Roadkill. This was genuinely something new, TV quality automotive content, but streaming for free online. TV quality shows are expensive to make, and Google's startup cash only paid for the first year. So MotorTrend quickly followed a cable TV business model and made the audience pay. Of course, cable TV was already in financial freefall because online video is blowing up, but MotorTrend people didn't see what they were doing as online video. They kept thinking about it as television. It's right there in the name, the unscripted television unit. And this TV mindset trickled down from leadership to many of the creators and talent.
I'm gonna defend MotorTrend a little bit here. A lot of the audience gets all torqued about all these cancellations, which we understand. It was our livelihood, but it's also just TV. And those of us who work in it, we're in the TV business, understand that's what happens, that's the way it is.
MotorTrend ended up trying to make paid TV at a time when paid TV was dying. The paywall strategy prevented them from achieving more success, and it's amazing it managed to continue for 9 years before someone finally pulled the plug. One reason it lasted that long is because some people are willing to pay for slick, big-budget automotive content. Just look at the Grand Tour. But MotorTrend's version of this was doomed to fail eventually because MotorTrend's audience gets smaller every day. The average age of a YouTube viewer is 30. The average age of a cable TV subscriber is 65, and the average age of a MotorTrend viewer is 57. That's not what MotorTrend says though. According to the material they use to attract advertisers, their average fan is just 34 years old. But according to what I was told, a MotorTrend executive once said to a producer to make a show seem younger because our audience is literally dying.
The audience on the cable TV network was old guys who like muscle cars. 100%. This is really no fault of MotorTrend.
Agree to disagree. I need to point something out so we're all on the same page. The MotorTrend group probably isn't lying when they say their average audience member is 34. I'm a little skeptical, but let's give them the benefit of the doubt. Because the unscripted television unit, whose average viewers are definitely not 34,
old guys who like muscle cars,
was just one division of MotorTrend Studio, which was just one part of the MotorTrend group. The MotorTrend group is the Enthusiast Network, which was publisher Source Interlink. At their peak, they controlled 70 different media brands and 90 websites. They have something like 600 employees, and their content is also made by hundreds more contractors, freelancers, freelancers, and outside production companies. Only a fraction of all of those people were involved with MotorTrend's unscripted television. Beyond that, the MotorTrend group has been largely successful. Hearst likely paid 9 figures for it, in part because it includes some great journalists and hosts. Some of them are friends, or at least they were before I made this video, and almost all of the content they're making, apart from the canceled shows, is released for free. For whatever reason, some people in the unscripted television unit didn't seem to get the memo about what other MotorTrend divisions were doing and that it was working. But another problem is that the content was dominated by middle-aged men and old American cars. At the time the paywall went up, American automotive culture had already grown beyond this. There'd been 7 Fast and Furious movies. Every one of those had made hundreds of millions of dollars, except Tokyo Drift. MotorTrend content simply wasn't targeted at the millions of car enthusiasts who were interested in imports and stuff from the 80s, 90s, and beyond. These enthusiasts weren't kids, they were in their 30s and 40s. They had money to spend. They're the reason Radwood started and got bought by Haggerty for $2 million.
A Super Street show that involved a bunch of import cars was never going to work, in my opinion.
These car enthusiasts are the same ones who would have spent $50 on an imported Best Motoring DVD in the 90s. If a streaming service actually gave them what they wanted now, a couple bucks a month was nothing. But they weren't interested in MotorTrend's old-fashioned content, and it turns out that MotorTrend executives weren't interested in making what those enthusiasts wanted anyway.
Hey, this is what the audience wants to see. They show up for the 50s, 60s, 70s cars. Let's give them what they want. We're not trying to expand the audience. We're trying to serve our current audience.
The biggest problem, according to the people who worked there, the final nail in MotorTrend's coffin is that the leadership believed their own hype. Everyone I spoke to for this video talked about frustrating experiences with MotorTrend leadership. Those leaders said they wanted change, new audiences, new shows to solve the audience problem, and they eagerly sought feedback from creators with proven track records in online video. Those people with expertise in online video told them if they wanted to grow the audience or attract a new one, they had to get out from behind the paywall. So MotorTrend leaders brought everyone together for a special announcement dinner and revealed that they would be releasing content on FAST channels. FAST stands for Free Ad-Supported Streaming TV, stuff like Tubi, Pluto, Fubo, Philo, and Zumo. Data suggests these are far worse platforms than YouTube. Content creators get a smaller percentage of revenue and don't get nearly as many views. So when leaders at MotorTrend figured that out, did they do a 180 and just put the shows on YouTube? Of course not. Instead, MotorTrend started their own FAST channel, creatively called Fast TV. Meanwhile, the people working there continued to tell leadership how to fix the audience problem, but they refused to implement any of the suggestions, instead repeating things like, "Oh, that doesn't work on television." People with expertise in online video would reiterate that this was the problem. They needed to stop trying to do what works on television and start doing what works in online video, where the new audience actually is. Like updating shows to meet modern tastes. One creator told me he recommended new types of music, for example. Leaders eagerly listened to his advice, then, quote, put the same old jock rock in the final edits. And leaders dismissed any suggestion that didn't fit into what they called the Roadkill universe. A creator told me this was the #1 thing he heard from leadership. Every new show had to have content and style consistent with MotorTrend's oldest show, Roadkill. Don't get me wrong, I'm not saying there's anything wrong with Roadkill itself. It was a hugely successful show with a massive following for a reason, but a MotorTrend channel filled with a dozen Roadkill clones isn't going to attract new viewers. But it seems leaders didn't want to mess with the existing formula and scare their shrinking audience, possibly scare them to death given their age. So in spite of asking successful creators for ideas, anything truly new or different was shot down. And MotorTrend chewed through shows at an alarming rate, constantly launching new ones and then abruptly canceling them. It was obvious that the MotorTrend formula for content creation hadn't been growing the audience. So why didn't leaders listen to everyone telling them how to fix it? One reason is because those same leaders whose names kept coming up in these conversations weren't car people. They were business people. For them, the ideal formula wasn't about making the best car content, it was about making the most money. Even though the people I spoke to for this video named names, I'm not going to. Experience has taught me that if I do, angry fans will send angry emails to those people, and I don't think anyone deserves to receive threats simply for being shitty at their job. If any of the people involved actually see this video, there's enough detail here for them to know who they are. But I am going to mention one person, and his name did not come up in any of my conversations, but he's such a great example of a business person who was the problem. Former president and CEO of the MotorTrend group, Alex Wellen. Before Discovery installed him as the head of the world's largest automotive media company, he'd been an executive at CNN and Turner Broadcasting. So not a car guy, not an online media guy, a TV guy. He reigned from 2018 until March of 2025, meaning he oversaw the cancellation of MotorTrend shows and the transition to Hearst's ownership. Then he left MotorTrend to run QVC. You know, the home shopping channel, which somehow still exists. On his way out the door, he made the typical back-patting LinkedIn post you'd expect from a corporate CEO, and he included a promo video for the new Hearst-owned MotorTrend. That video emphasized that MotorTrend should be thought of now as a tool for brands to find consumers. That's not a content-first company, that's not an entertainment-first company, and it's definitely not a car enthusiast-first company.
Join the network created by automotive enthusiasts or automotive enthusiasts.
MotorTrend is where the world's largest brands come to find the consumers.
But the first line of that LinkedIn post is what really caught my attention. MotorTrend has always been about the people. Just a couple months after firing dozens of those people, the ones who made MotorTrend's most recognizable content.
A good portion of the people I know that work there have either been laid off or getting laid off.
As a result of being run by business people, the MotorTrend Group has annual revenue in the hundreds of millions of dollars, and by that metric, they've been very successful. But having business people telling car people how to make car shows was a huge problem for those shows. They'd veto vehicles that have huge enthusiast followings and therefore huge potential audiences, and force creators to use chassis that could showcase products from paying sponsors. They demanded sponsor placements that show creators advised them against. Roadkill was an interesting exception. Because of its success with the current audience, those creators were mostly left alone, but all of the other shows were made by dyed-in-the-wool car people too, and they knew what car people did and did not want to see. Even the move to fast channels was part of that business first, audience second mentality. Distribution on fast channels increases viewership numbers, making the content easier to sell to sponsors. It's a way to pump numbers, but without adding real value. One source referred to it as simply view farming. The other reason MotorTrend leaders failed to listen or change was simply arrogance. The problems of the past decade aren't just because of a TV mindset, they're because of a MotorTrend mindset, holding on to the idea that we're MotorTrend, so we're the best.
We are the #1 source for automotive media,
even while falling behind most of the industry. Nearly all of the leaders that former employees called out had been with MotorTrend since their initial success on YouTube. But those leaders never started thinking like YouTubers, constantly adapting to change, meeting the audience where it is, or being streamlined and efficient with production. And they definitely didn't take YouTubers seriously.
Can you show me a hit automotive TV show that has 20-year-olds in it? Any?
Weston Champlin, Cletus McFarlane, Whistlin' Diesel, and Chris Fix are all still in their 20s. Countless other successful automotive YouTubers started in their 20s and are still going strong. But can I name a hit TV show hosted by 20-year-olds?
We're in the TV business.
No, and with good reason. Audiences enjoy watching people they can relate to, and TV's aging audience can't relate to hosts who are that young. But it's not like YouTube is a platform exclusively for young people. YouTube creators can succeed at any age. Just look at Scotty Kilmer. He was born in the 1890s. Nearly half the current YouTube audience is over 35, and people 55 to 65 are the fastest growing age group among YouTube viewers. The cable TV audience isn't just shrinking because people are dying off. Older viewers are leaving cable for YouTube. It's surprising how many people at MotorTrend failed to connect the dots here, because a lot of those people came from magazines, and what YouTube has done to television is no different than what websites did to magazines.
TV ratings across the board are just down.
Yep.
YouTube is stealing views, TikTok, Instagram, all these places that are stealing people's attention are taking it away from cable TV.
They're not stealing views, they're out-competing. Cable TV has been declining for well over a decade because online creators make stuff that more people want to watch and then give it to them for free. Everyone I spoke to agreed that the core problem that ultimately doomed MotorTrend shows was the leadership. They were magazine and TV people making online video, but not listening to online video experts. They were trying to make automotive content without listening to automotive experts, and they seemed to think the audience was guaranteed simply by the MotorTrend name. If those leaders dropped the ego and just did what other online creators had been doing all along, they would have succeeded, and the proof is that it's happening right now. All the most popular personalities from MotorTrend already had their own YouTube channels, but their contracts, their day jobs had limited the content they could post. They've been stuck behind a paywall for 10 years, but are now in charge of their own destiny with full creative control and ownership of what they make, and they seem to be thriving. Everyone working in automotive media knew for a long time that the end was coming for MotorTrend shows, because everyone had seen MotorTrend spend 10 years killing those shows. Discovery and Hearst, they just finished the job. Thanks for watching.